The dust cloud on the horizon moved wrong, too erratic for wind and too desperate for anything but trouble. And Owen Quincy knew in his bones that someone needed help before he even saw the overturned wagon. He reined in his horse and squinted against the late afternoon sun beating down on the Arkansas plains outside Fort Smith. Behind him, 300 head of cattle lowed and shuffled, pushing forward with the mindless momentum of a herd 2 days from market. His men would wonder where he had gone. They were already short-handed after losing Pete to a broken leg in Little Rock, and the cattle buyers in Fort Smith were expecting them by sunset tomorrow. But that dust cloud kept rising, and Owen could make out the shape of someone moving frantically near what looked like a collapsed wagon wheel. He touched his heels to his horse's flanks and headed toward the scene at a gallop, leaving his herd behind. As he drew closer, he could see it was a woman in a dark blue traveling dress, her hair coming loose from its pins as she struggled with something near the wagon. A team of horses stood nearby, still hitched but tangled in their traces. One of them was favoring a front leg. "Madam," Owen called out as he approached. "You need help." The woman spun around, and Owen felt something shift in his chest. Even with dirt streaking her face and her hair wild around her shoulders, she was beautiful. More than beautiful. Her eyes were the color of good whiskey, and they fixed on him with a mixture of relief and desperation that made him pull his horse up short. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "My father. He is trapped under the wagon." Owen was off his horse before she finished speaking. He could see it now, an older man pinned beneath the heavy wooden frame, his face gray with pain. The wagon had tipped when the wheel broke, and the full weight of it had come down on the man's leg. "How long has he been like this?" Owen asked, already assessing the situation. 20 minutes, maybe more. I have been trying to lift it, but I cannot get enough leverage." Owen nodded and positioned himself at the wagon's edge. "When I lift, you pull him free. Can you do that?" "Yes." Her voice was steady now, determined. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. Owen threw his weight into the lift, every muscle in his back and arms straining. The wagon shifted, groaned, rose a few inches. The woman grabbed her father under the arms and dragged him backward with surprising strength. As soon as the man was clear, Owen let the wagon drop. The older man was conscious but clearly in bad shape. His leg was twisted at an angle that made Owen's stomach turn. A compound fracture at the very least, maybe worse. "Thank you," the woman breathed. She was kneeling beside her father now, her hands hovering over him as if she was afraid to touch him and cause more pain. "Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet," Owen said. He knelt on the other side of the injured man. "Sir, I am Owen Quincy. We need to get you to a doctor." The man's eyes fluttered open. He was maybe 60, with gray hair and weathered features that spoke of a life spent outdoors. Robert Vernon. This is my daughter, Rose. Mr. Vernon, I am going to splint your leg as best I can, but it is going to hurt." Robert nodded weakly. Rose took her father's hand and held it tight. Owen retrieved his bedroll from his horse and tore it into strips, then found 2 straight pieces of wood from the broken wagon. As gently as he could, he secured the splint around Robert's leg. The older man groaned but did not cry out. "Fort Smith is about 8 miles northeast," Owen said. "There is a doctor there, Doc Harrington. He is good." "We were heading there ourselves," Rose said. "We were supposed to arrive this evening." Owen looked at the wagon with its broken wheel and the lame horse. "This wagon is not going anywhere, and that horse needs rest. I will take your father on my horse. You can ride double with me." "But your cattle," Rose said, gesturing toward the horizon where the herd was visible as a dark mass in the distance. "You will lose them." Owen met her eyes. "Some things matter more than my own plans, madam." Something passed between them in that moment, a connection that felt like recognition even though they had just met. Rose's eyes widened slightly, and a flush crept across her cheeks that had nothing to do with the heat. Together they got Robert onto Owen's horse. It took careful maneuvering and several attempts, but finally, the injured man was settled as comfortably as possible. Owen swung up behind him, keeping one arm around Robert to hold him steady. Rose looked at the limited space remaining on the horse. "Come on," Owen said, extending his free hand. "We can manage." Rose hesitated only a moment before taking his hand. Owen pulled her up, and she settled sideways in front of him, her back against his chest. The closeness was immediate and intense. Owen could smell lavender in her hair and feel the warmth of her body through their clothes. His heart was beating harder than it had when lifting the wagon. They started toward Fort Smith at a careful walk. Every step jarred Robert, and Owen could hear the man's labored breathing. Rose sat stiffly in his arms, clearly aware of their proximity. "Tell me about yourselves," Owen said, partly to distract Robert from the pain and partly because he wanted to know everything about the woman in his arms. "What brings you to Fort Smith?" "I am taking a teaching position at the new school," Rose said. "My father was escorting me. We came from Memphis." "That is quite a journey." "My mother died last year," Rose said quietly. "I needed a fresh start, somewhere that felt different." "I am sorry about your mother," Owen said. "Thank you." Rose shifted slightly, adjusting her position, and Owen felt the movement through his entire body. "What about you? You are a cattleman." "Yes, madam. I have a ranch about 40 miles west of here. I have been driving this herd to market in Fort Smith." "Should have been there by tomorrow evening." "Should have been," Rose repeated. "Because of us, you will lose your delivery time." "The cattle will still be there," Owen said. "Maybe a day late, but they will be there. Your father needed help now." Robert stirred and spoke for the first time since they had started riding. "You are a good man, Mr. Quincy." "Just doing what is right, sir." The sun was sinking lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The heat of the day was giving way to the cooler air of evening. Rose relaxed slightly against Owen, and he found himself very aware of every breath she took, every small movement. "How long have you had your ranch?" Rose asked. 5 years. I worked for other men for a long time, saved my money, and finally bought my own land. It is not much, but it is mine." "That is admirable, building something of your own." "What about teaching?" "Have you done it long?" 3 years in Memphis. "I love it. The children, the learning, watching them grow and understand new things. It is the one constant that has kept me steady since my mother passed." They talked as they rode, their voices low to avoid disturbing Robert too much. Owen learned that Rose was 23 years old, that she loved reading and had brought 2 trunks full of books that were still in the broken wagon, that she had never been west of Memphis before this trip. She learned that he was 27, that he had grown up in Texas but left after his father died, that he had always dreamed of having his own land where he could build something lasting. The miles passed slowly. Robert drifted in and out of consciousness, and each time he sagged, Owen tightened his grip to keep him secure. Rose helped, reaching back to steady her father, and each time her hand brushed against Owen's arm or chest, he felt that same jolt of connection. Darkness was falling when the lights of Fort Smith finally appeared in the distance. Owen felt Rose sag with relief. "Almost there," he said quietly, his lips close to her ear. "I do not know how to thank you," Rose said, "if you had not come along." "But I did," Owen said. "That is what matters." Fort Smith was bustling even at this hour. The town sat at the edge of Indian Territory, a jumping-off point for settlers and travelers heading west. The streets were busy with wagons and horses, and saloon music drifted from several establishments. Owen guided his horse straight to Doc Harrington's office, a neat building on the main street with a sign hanging outside. He dismounted carefully and helped Rose down. Then together they eased Robert off the horse. The doctor, a middle-aged man with spectacles and capable hands, came out at their knock and immediately took charge. "Compound fracture," he said after a quick examination. "Possibly some internal damage. Bring him inside quickly." They carried Robert into the examining room, and Doc Harrington shooed them out. "I need to work. You two wait in the front room." Owen and Rose found themselves alone in the doctor's small waiting area. For the first time since meeting, they really looked at each other. Rose's dress was dusty and torn at the hem. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders, the pins long since lost. She had never looked more beautiful to Owen. "You should sit," he said, gesturing to one of the chairs. Rose shook her head. "I cannot. I am too worried." She wrapped her arms around herself. What if his leg cannot be saved? What if the infection sets in? Owen wanted to comfort her, wanted to pull her into his arms and promise that everything would be all right, but he barely knew her. Instead, he said, "Doc Harrington is the best doctor between Little Rock and the Indian Territory. If anyone can help your father, he can." Rose nodded but did not look convinced. She paced to the window and stared out at the street. "I have lost so much already. I cannot lose him too." "You will not," Owen said, with more confidence than he felt. They waited in tense silence for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes. Finally, Doc Harrington emerged, wiping his hands on a cloth. "The leg is badly broken," he said. "I have set it and splinted it, but he needs to stay off it completely for at least 8 weeks, possibly longer. He will need constant care during that time." "Will he recover fully?" Rose asked. "Too soon to say. The bone should heal, but there may be lasting damage. He is lucky it was not worse." "Can I see him? He is sleeping now. I gave him laudanum for the pain. You can sit with him, but he will not wake for several hours." Rose nodded and moved toward the examination room. At the doorway, she turned back to Owen. "Will you wait? I would like to speak with you." "Of course," Owen said. Rose disappeared into the back room, and Owen sank into one of the waiting room chairs. He was exhausted, covered in dust and sweat, and his back ached from the strain of lifting the wagon and riding double. But more than that, he was worried. Not just about Robert Vernon's leg, but about Rose. What was she going to do now? She was supposed to start teaching, but her father needed care. She was new to Fort Smith, probably did not know anyone here, and she would need money for the doctor's fees and boarding. And then there were his own concerns. His herd was still out on the plains with his men, and they would be wondering where he had gone. The cattle needed to be delivered. He had contracts to fulfill, money riding on this sale. But every time he thought about leaving, about riding back out to his herd and continuing on to Fort Smith stockyards, he saw Rose's face when she had looked at him and said thank you. He saw the way her eyes had caught the setting sun, turning them gold. He remembered the feel of her in his arms during the ride, the sound of her voice, the way she had talked about teaching with such passion. "Some things matter more than my own plans." He had meant it when he said it, and he meant it now. The door to the examination room opened, and Rose emerged. Her eyes were red, but she was not crying. She had washed her face and attempted to pin up her hair, though several curls still escaped around her face. "He is resting comfortably," she said. "The doctor says he will need to stay here for at least a few days, maybe a week, before he can be moved." "That is good. He will be well cared for." Rose sat in the chair across from Owen. "I need to figure out where to stay. I was supposed to board with a family, the Mitchells, but that was contingent on me being able to start teaching immediately. I cannot do that now, not with my father needing care." "You will figure it out," Owen said. "Fort Smith has a boarding house, Mrs. Crawford's place. She is fair and honest." "I do not have much money," Rose admitted. Most of what we had was spent getting here. I was counting on my teaching salary. Owen made a decision. I will take care of the doctor's fees and your boarding for the first week. You can pay me back when you are settled. Rose's eyes widened. I cannot accept that. You have already done so much. You can and will, Owen said firmly. Your father needs care and you need a place to stay. This is not charity, Rose. This is neighbors helping neighbors. But we are not neighbors. We only just met a few hours ago. Owen leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, and looked at her intently. Sometimes a few hours is enough to know when something is right. The air between them seemed to thicken. Rose's breath caught and color rose in her cheeks again. Owen could see her pulse beating at the base of her throat. I do not understand, she whispered. You not? Owen asked softly. Rose held his gaze for a long moment, and Owen saw the answer in her eyes before she spoke. I felt it too. From the moment you rode up, like I already knew you somehow. I am not a man given to fancies, Owen said. I am practical, I plan things out, but it feels different. I am supposed to be starting a new life here, Rose said. Focusing on teaching, on building something stable after everything that has happened. I was not looking for this. Neither was I, Owen admitted, but here we are. Doc Harrington cleared his throat from the doorway and they both jumped. Sorry to interrupt, but I need to discuss payment and arrangements. Owen stood. Send the bill to me, Owen Quincy. I have an account at the bank here. And boarding for Miss Vernon, Owen continued. I will settle that as well. The doctor nodded. Mrs. Crawford's boarding house is just down the street. I will send word that Miss Vernon will need a room. After making the arrangements, Owen walked Rose to the boarding house. The night was fully dark now, and the streets had quieted somewhat. Their footsteps echoed on the wooden sidewalk. What about your cattle? Rose asked. Your men must be wondering what happened to you. I will ride out first thing in the morning and find them. We will be delayed getting to market, but it cannot be helped. All because of me. Owen stopped walking and turned to face her. All because it was the right thing to do, and because I wanted to. Rose looked up at him, her face softly illuminated by the light from a nearby window. You are different from anyone I have met before. Is that a good thing? Yes, she said simply. They stood there for a moment, the rest of the world falling away. Owen was intensely aware of how close they were, how easy it would be to lean down and kiss her. But it was too soon, too fast, even if it did not feel that way. I should get you settled, he said, his voice rougher than usual. Mrs. Crawford's boarding house was warm and welcoming. The proprietor, a plump woman with kind eyes, had already prepared a room and accepted Owen's payment for the first week without question. She showed Rose upstairs while Owen waited in the front parlor. When Rose came back down, she looked exhausted. Mrs. Crawford has invited me to take supper with her. You should join us. You must be starving. Owen realized he had not eaten since morning. I do not want to impose. After everything you have done, please, I would like you to stay. So he stayed. Mrs. Crawford served a simple but hearty meal of stew and fresh bread. As they ate, Owen and Rose continued talking, and it felt as natural as breathing. They discovered shared opinions on books Rose had read and Owen had not, debated the best way to break a stubborn horse, laughed over stories of childhood mishaps. Mrs. Crawford watched them with knowing eyes but said nothing. After supper, Owen knew he needed to leave. It was full dark and he had a long ride ahead of him in the morning. He stood reluctantly and Rose walked him to the door. Thank you, she said, for everything. I do not know what I would have done without you. You would have managed, Owen said. You are stronger than you think. Perhaps. But I am glad I did not have to find out. Owen put on his hat. I will come by tomorrow afternoon after I have dealt with my herd. Check on you and your father. I would like that. Owen mounted his horse and looked down at Rose, backlit by the warm light from the boarding house. He wanted to say something more, something that captured what he was feeling, but the words would not come. "Good night, Rose." "Good night, Owen." He rode to the edge of town and made camp under the stars, too tired to go further. As he lay in his bedroll, he thought about the day. This morning he had been a simple cattleman with simple plans. Deliver his herd, collect his money, go home. Now everything felt different, complicated in ways he could not quite articulate. He thought about Rose's eyes, her laugh, the way she had felt in his arms on the ride to town. He thought about the connection he had felt, instant and undeniable. Was it possible to fall in love in a single day? Owen had always dismissed such notions as romantic foolishness, but now he was not so sure. He fell asleep thinking about her. The next morning, Owen woke with the sunrise and rode hard back to where he had left his herd. He found them scattered across a wider area than he would have liked, but his men had kept them together. His foreman, a grizzled veteran named Cal, rode out to meet him. "Boss, where the hell did you go? We thought maybe you got thrown or attacked." Found a woman and her father with a broken-down wagon. The man was badly hurt. Had to get him to Fort Smith. Cal raised his eyebrows but did not comment. "Well, we are behind schedule now. It is going to be tight making delivery." "We will make it," Owen said. "Push the herd hard today. We can still get there by tomorrow evening if we do not stop." They drove the cattle hard, and it was grueling work. The heat was oppressive, and the herd kept wanting to slow down and graze. Owen and his men rode constantly, keeping the cattle moving, eating jerky in the saddle because there was no time to stop for proper meals. But the whole time, even as he worked, Owen's mind kept drifting back to Rose. Was she all right? How was her father doing? Had she gone to see him this morning? Was she thinking about Owen the way he was thinking about her? They reached the outskirts of Fort Smith just as the sun was setting. Owen left his men to settle the herd in the stockyards and rode straight for Doc Harrington's office. His clothes were filthy and he probably smelled like cattle and sweat, but he did not care. Rose was sitting with her father when Owen arrived. Robert was awake, propped up on pillows, his leg elevated. He looked pale but alert. Rose's face lit up when she saw Owen, and that look made every hard mile of the past day worth it. "Owen," she said, standing, "you came back. I said I would. How is your herd? Safe in the stockyards. We made it." He turned to Robert. "Mr. Vernon, how are you feeling?" "Like I was hit by a wagon," Robert said with a weak smile, "which I suppose I was. Doc says I am lucky. Thanks to you, I still have my leg. I am glad to hear it. My daughter tells me you have been very generous covering our expenses. I intend to repay you every cent." "We can settle accounts later," Owen said. "Right now, you need to focus on healing." Doc Harrington appeared. "I am going to have to ask you folks to let my patient rest. He needs his strength." Rose kissed her father's forehead. "I will be back in the morning, Papa." Outside, the evening air was cooler and fresher than the stale sickroom. Rose took a deep breath and smiled at Owen. "I have been inside all day. Would you walk with me?" "I would like nothing better," Owen said. They strolled through Fort Smith streets, which were lively with evening activity. Rose pointed out the schoolhouse where she was supposed to teach, a modest building at the edge of town. Owen told her about his ranch, painting pictures with words of the small house he had built, the pastures where his horses grazed, the creek that ran through his property. "It sounds beautiful," Rose said wistfully. "I have never been to a real ranch. You should visit sometime, when your father is better." "I would like that." They ended up at the edge of town where the buildings gave way to open prairie. The stars were coming out, scattered across the darkening sky like diamonds. Rose stood looking up at them, and Owen stood looking at her. "I spoke with the school board today," Rose said. They are willing to hold my position for 2 weeks while my father recovers enough to be moved. After that, I will need to start teaching, or they will have to find someone else. 2 weeks is not much time. No, it is not. Doc Harrington says Papa will not be able to travel for at least 6 weeks, probably more. Even then, he cannot go back to Memphis alone. He will need someone to care for him for months. Owen could hear the worry in her voice. What will you do? I do not know. I need this teaching position, but I cannot abandon my father. Rose turned to him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I feel like I am being torn in two. Owen wanted to fix this for her, wanted to solve all her problems, but he did not know how. We will figure something out. Will we? Rose's voice was almost desperate. You keep saying that, but I do not see how. You have your ranch to run, I have my teaching. My father needs care. And we barely know each other, even if it does not feel that way. You are right, Owen admitted, but that does not change how I feel. Rose looked at him. And how do you feel? Owen took a step closer to her. They were standing so near now that he could see the different shades of gold and brown in her eyes. I feel like I found something I did not know I was looking for. I feel like if I ride away and never see you again, I will regret it for the rest of my life. I feel like I want to know everything about you, want to wake up and see your face every morning, want to build something with you that lasts. Rose's breath caught. Owen, we met yesterday. I know. It is insane, but it is true. I feel it too, Rose whispered. But feeling something and being able to act on it are different things. I have responsibilities. You have responsibilities. It is not as simple as just wanting something. No, Owen agreed. It is not simple, but maybe it does not have to be. Before Rose could respond, a commotion erupted from the direction of town. Shouting, running feet, the sound of breaking glass. Owen and Rose hurried back toward the main street and found a crowd gathered outside one of the saloons. What happened? Owen asked a man at the edge of the crowd. Fight broke out, some drifters causing trouble. Owen pushed through the crowd with Rose following. In the middle of the street, 2 men were being held back by several townspeople. One of them was bleeding from a cut above his eye. The marshal, a solid man with a star on his vest, was trying to restore order. That is enough, the marshal shouted. You 2 are spending the night in jail. As the marshal and his deputies hauled the troublemakers away, Owen recognized one of the onlookers. It was Ben Mitchell, a rancher Owen knew slightly from previous trips to Fort Smith. Evening, Ben, Owen said. Owen, heard your herd was in. Good timing, the buyers are paying top dollar right now. Glad to hear it. Owen gestured to Rose. Ben Mitchell, this is Rose Vernon. She is the new teacher for the school. Ben's face brightened. Miss Vernon, my wife Sarah has been hoping to meet you. We are the family you were supposed to board with. Oh, Rose said, surprised. I thought, with my father's injury and my not being able to start teaching right away, that the arrangement had fallen through. Nonsense, Ben said. Sarah would have my hide if we let the new teacher slip through our fingers. We have been needing a good school here for years. She knows what happened with your father, and she said to tell you that the offer still stands. In fact, we would be happy to have your father stay with us too, once he is well enough to leave the doc's care. Rose looked stunned. That is very generous, but I could not impose that much. It is not an imposition. We have the room, and Sarah loves having people to fuss over. Besides, you will be teaching our 2 boys. Consider it part of the arrangement. Owen felt relief wash over him. This solved at least part of Rose's problem. That is very kind of you, Ben. Just being neighborly. Miss Vernon, why do you not come by tomorrow and meet Sarah? Our place is just outside town, easy to find. Anyone can give you directions. I will, Rose said. Thank you so much. After Ben left, Rose turned to Owen with wonder in her eyes. I cannot believe it. It is like a miracle. It is a good town, Owen said. People help each other out here. They walked back to the boarding house, and the mood between them had shifted. The immediate crisis was not as dire as Rose had thought. She would be able to teach, and her father would have a place to recover. But that still left the question of what would happen between her and Owen. At the boarding house door, Rose turned to him. "You are delivering your cattle tomorrow?" "Yes, first thing in the morning." "Then I need to head back to my ranch. I have been gone too long already, and there is work that needs doing." "When will you be back in Fort Smith?" "I do not know. A few weeks, maybe a month." Rose nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. "It is a long way to come just to visit. 40 miles. Not so far if there is a good reason." They looked at each other, the question hanging between them. Was this the end? Would they let the practical considerations win, chalk up these 2 days to chance, and go their separate ways? "I do not want this to be over," Rose said quietly. "But I do not know how to make it work." Owen took her hand, the first time he had really touched her since helping her onto his horse. Her hand was small and warm in his. "Neither do I. But I know I want to try." "What does trying look like?" "It looks like me coming back to Fort Smith as often as I can. It looks like you writing me letters telling me about your teaching and your father's recovery. It looks like us giving this, whatever this is, a real chance." Rose squeezed his hand. "I would like that. Then we will do it." Owen raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I will be back in 2 weeks. Count on it." 2 weeks, Rose repeated. Owen left her at the boarding house door and rode back to his camp near the stockyards. His men were settled in, already celebrating the successful drive with whiskey and cards. Owen joined them but found he was not in a celebratory mood. His mind was already on the ranch, on getting his work done as quickly as possible so he could return to Fort Smith. Return to Rose. The next morning, Owen completed his business with the cattle buyers. The sale went smoothly, and he got a good price. He paid off his men and made arrangements to have the money transferred to his bank. By midday, he was ready to leave, but first he went to see Rose one more time. He found her at Doc Harrington's office sitting with her father. Robert looked better today, more alert and less pale. He smiled when Owen entered. "Come to say goodbye?" Robert asked. "For now," Owen said. "I will be back. My daughter told me about the Mitchells' offer. It seems things are working out better than we hoped." "Yes, sir. Fort Smith is a good town. You will be happy here." "I hope so." Robert looked at Owen seriously. "I also understand you have taken a particular interest in Rose." Owen met the older man's gaze steadily. "Yes, sir, I have. She has been through a lot this past year. Losing her mother, uprooting her life to come here. She needs stability, not more uncertainty." "Papa," Rose protested, but Robert held up a hand. "I am not trying to be difficult, just honest. Owen, you seem like a good man. You have certainly proven that these past 2 days. But you live 40 miles away, you have a ranch to run, and you and my daughter barely know each other." "You are right about all of that," Owen said. "But I am going to be honest too, sir. I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about Rose. I know it is fast, and I know it is complicated, but I am not going to walk away without at least trying to see where this could go. If Rose is willing." All eyes turned to Rose. She looked at her father, then at Owen, and Owen could see her wrestling with the decision. Finally, she spoke. "I am willing," she said. Robert sighed, but he was smiling. "Then I suppose I am outnumbered. But Owen, you treat her right or you will answer to me, broken leg or no broken leg." "I will, sir. I promise." Owen spent a few more minutes with Rose and her father, then it was time to go. Rose walked him outside into the bright midday sun. 2 weeks, he said. 2 weeks, she confirmed. Owen wanted to kiss her, wanted it so badly he could taste it. But not here, not in the middle of the street with people walking by. Instead, he touched her cheek gently, letting his fingers trace the line of her jaw. "I am going to think about you every day," he said. "I am going to think about you too." Owen forced himself to step back to turn away to mount his horse. As he rode out of Fort Smith, he looked back and saw Rose still standing there, watching him go. He raised his hand in a wave and she waved back. The ride home felt longer than usual. Owen's ranch was not much to look at, just a simple cabin, a barn and several corrals, but it was his. He had built most of it himself, working from dawn to dusk for years to make his dream a reality. Usually, coming home after a cattle drive filled him with satisfaction. But today, the place felt empty. His ranch hand, a young man named Jimmy who watched the place when Owen was away, came out to greet him. "Boss, good drive." "Good enough. Any problems here?" "Nope, everything has been quiet. The horses are all healthy and I fixed that fence line on the north pasture like you asked." "Good work, Jimmy." Owen spent the rest of the day settling back in, checking on his horses, making note of what needed doing. The list was long. Fences to mend, tack to repair, water troughs to clean, 100 other small tasks that kept a ranch running. Normally, he would have thrown himself into the work, but now it all felt like obstacles keeping him from getting back to Fort Smith. That evening, he sat on his porch watching the sunset and thinking about Rose. Was she with the Mitchells now? Had she started preparing for her teaching? Was she thinking about him? He went inside and found paper and ink. His handwriting was not elegant, but he did his best. "Dear Rose," he wrote, "I arrived home safely. The ranch is well, but it feels different now. Emptier. I think it is because I keep wishing you were here to see it. I want to show you the horses, especially the mare I have been training. I want to walk with you along the creek and watch the sunset from the porch. I want 1,000 things I never wanted before. 2 weeks feels like forever, but I will count the days. I hope your father is improving and that the Mitchells are treating you well. Write to me when you can. Your letters will be the best part of my day. Yours, Owen." He posted the letter the next day when he rode into the nearest town for supplies. It would take several days to reach Fort Smith, but knowing that Rose would read his words made him feel closer to her. The days crawled by. Owen worked himself hard, trying to tire himself out enough that he would stop thinking about Rose constantly. It did not work. Everything reminded him of her. The sky at sunset was the color of her eyes. The sound of the wind reminded him of her laugh. Even his mare's gentle temperament made him think of Rose's quiet strength. A week after he got home, a letter arrived. Owen practically snatched it from Jimmy's hands and retreated to the porch to read it. "Dear Owen," Rose had written in neat, elegant script, "your letter was wonderful. I read it 3 times. I am settled with the Mitchells now and they are lovely people. Sarah is warm and welcoming and Ben is kind. Their boys, Thomas and William, are 8 and 10 and full of energy. I start teaching in 3 days and I am nervous but excited. Papa is improving slowly. Doc Harrington is pleased with his progress. He can sit up now without too much pain, though he still cannot put any weight on his leg. He asks about you often. I think about our conversations, about standing under the stars with you, about everything you said. I think about you riding away and how much I wanted you to stay. Is this madness? Feeling so much so quickly, I cannot wait to see you again. 1 more week. Yours." Rose. Owen read the letter 5 times, memorizing every word. Then he went inside and wrote back immediately, telling her about the ranch, about the mare he was training, about how the nights were the hardest because he dreamed about her and woke up alone. The letters flew back and forth over that second week. Rose wrote about her first days of teaching, about the children and their eagerness to learn. Owen wrote about the work on the ranch, about his plans to expand his herd next year. But beneath the everyday details, every letter carried the weight of everything they were not saying, the intensity of feeling that neither of them quite knew how to express on paper. Finally, the 2 weeks were up. Owen woke before dawn, too excited to sleep. He dressed carefully, putting on his best shirt and even shaving. Jimmy watched with amusement. "Must be some important business in Fort Smith," he said. "The most important," Owen replied. He rode hard and reached Fort Smith by early afternoon. His first stop was the Mitchell's ranch, which was a tidy spread a few miles outside town. Sarah Mitchell, a cheerful woman with graying hair, answered his knock. "You must be Owen," she said with a knowing smile. "Rose has talked about nothing but your visit for days." "She is inside with the boys, finishing their lessons." Owen waited in the front room, his hat in his hands, suddenly nervous. What if 2 weeks apart had changed things? What if Rose had reconsidered? Then she appeared in the doorway, and all his doubts vanished. Her face lit up with pure joy when she saw him. "Owen," he crossed the room in 3 strides and caught her in his arms. For a moment they just held each other, and it felt like coming home. "I missed you," Rose said, her voice muffled against his chest. "I missed you too. Every day, every minute." They pulled back enough to look at each other, and Owen saw his own feelings reflected in Rose's eyes. This was real. This was happening. Sarah Mitchell cleared her throat. "Why do you not take Rose into town for supper? She has been working so hard. She deserves an evening out." "I would like that very much," Owen said, still looking at Rose. They walked into Fort Smith together, and it felt different from their previous walks. More comfortable, more certain. They had been apart for 2 weeks, but their letters had kept them connected, building on the foundation laid during those first 2 intense days. Over supper at the hotel restaurant, they caught up on everything the letters had not covered. Rose told him about individual students, bringing them to life with her descriptions. Owen told her about the mayor finally accepting a saddle, about fixing the barn roof, about the way the ranch looked at sunrise. "I want you to see it," he said. "The ranch. I know it is not practical right now, with your teaching and your father, but someday." "I would love that," Rose said. "Your letters paint such a picture. I feel like I know the place already." After supper, they walked to Doc Harrington's office to visit Robert. The older man's improvement was evident. He was sitting up in a chair instead of lying in bed, and there was color in his cheeks. "Owen, good to see you, son. You are looking much better, sir." "Feeling better, too. Doc says another few weeks and I should be able to move to the Mitchell's place. Still will not be walking, but at least I will not be stuck in this room." They visited for a while, but Owen could tell Robert was tiring. As they said their goodbyes, Robert pulled Owen aside. "I have been watching my daughter these past 2 weeks," he said quietly. "She is happy in a way I have not seen since before her mother died. That is because of you." "I hope so, sir. Do not make me regret giving you my blessing." "I will not, sir." Outside, the evening was cool and clear. Rose and Owen walked slowly, neither wanting the day to end. "How long can you stay?" Rose asked. "I need to head back tomorrow. I cannot leave Jimmy alone too long." "1 day," Rose said, disappointed. "I will come back in 2 weeks, and the time after that will be shorter, I promise." "It is not enough. I want more time with you." Owen stopped walking and turned to face her. They were on the edge of town again, the same spot where they had stood 2 weeks ago. "So do I. Rose, I know this is difficult. The distance, the timing, everything, but I am not giving up, are you?" "No," Rose said firmly. "I am not giving up." "Then we will make it work, somehow." Owen took her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. "I am going to kiss you now, if that is all right." "More than all right," Rose breathed. Owen leaned down and touched his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative. But then Rose's arms came around his neck and the kiss deepened. It was everything Owen had imagined and more, sweet and fierce and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Rose rested her forehead against Owen's chest and he held her close, his hand stroking her hair. "I love you," Owen said, the words coming easily. "I know it is fast, but I do. I love you, Rose Vernon." Rose looked up at him, her eyes shining. "I love you too. I try not to, try to be sensible, but I cannot help it. I love you, Owen Quincy." They stood there holding each other, the future uncertain but the present perfect. Over the next few months, Owen made the trip to Fort Smith every 2 weeks like clockwork. Sometimes he could only stay a day, sometimes 2, but every visit brought them closer. Rose met his horses through his descriptions and stories. Owen got to know her students through her anecdotes. They talked about everything, their pasts and their dreams for the future. Robert continued to improve, though it was slow going. By the time autumn arrived, he was able to move to the Mitchells' place and could even hobble around on crutches for short periods. The doctor said he would probably always walk with a limp, but he would walk. Rose's teaching was going well. The children adored her and the town had embraced her as one of their own. She had made friends, built a life in Fort Smith. But Owen knew she was torn. She loved teaching, but she also loved him, and his life was at the ranch, 40 miles away. One evening in late October, as they sat on the Mitchells' porch watching the sunset, Owen brought up what they had both been avoiding. "We cannot keep going like this," he said. Rose stiffened. "What do you mean?" "I mean seeing each other for a day or two every couple of weeks." "It is not enough, Rose. I want more. I want to wake up with you, go to sleep with you, build a life with you." "I want that too, but how? I have my teaching, you have your ranch." "I have been thinking about it a lot," Owen said. "I could move here, find work in town or nearby." "No," Rose said immediately. "You built that ranch yourself. It is your dream. I would never ask you to give that up. And I would never ask you to give up your teaching. So where does that leave us?" Rose was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was small. "Maybe it leaves us accepting that sometimes love is not enough, that circumstances matter too." "I do not believe that," Owen said fiercely. "I refuse to believe that." "Then what is the solution?" Owen took her hand. "Marry me, come to the ranch, you can still teach. We will start a school there. There are families in the area, children who need an education. It would be smaller than here, but you would still be teaching." Rose looked at him with wide eyes. "Owen, I am serious. We could build a schoolhouse on the ranch property. You could teach the local children during the week and be with me every night. It is not perfect, but it is something." "What about my father? He comes too. There is room in the cabin, or we could build another one nearby. Rose, I have thought about this from every angle. I do not have all the answers, but I know I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" Rose had tears streaming down her face. "Yes, yes, I will marry you." Owen kissed her, and it tasted like salt and sweetness and the future they would build together. The wedding was planned for early December, after Rose finished the fall term of teaching. The Mitchells insisted on hosting it at their ranch, and Sarah threw herself into the preparations with joy. Robert walked Rose down the aisle, leaning on a cane but standing tall and proud. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. Owen stood at the front of the Mitchells' front room, which had been decorated with evergreen boughs and winter flowers, and watched Rose walk toward him. She wore a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, and she had never been more beautiful. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, and Owen heard the words, but what he really heard was his heartbeat, steady and sure, matching the rhythm of Rose's. "I, Owen, take you, Rose, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said when it was time, his voice clear and strong. "To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do us part." Rose repeated the same vows, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister said. "You may kiss your bride." Owen kissed his wife, and the small gathering erupted in applause. The celebration afterward was joyful. Sarah had prepared a feast, and neighbors from miles around had come to wish them well. Owen and Rose barely left each other's sides, constantly touching, making sure this was real. As the evening wound down, Ben Mitchell pulled Owen aside. "You are a lucky man. I know it. You take care of her. And that school idea, building one on your property, I think that is brilliant. There are at least a dozen families in that area who would love to have their children educated closer to home. I am going to start building it in the spring," Owen said. "Right now, I just want to take my wife home." They left the next morning early with Robert in the back of a wagon Owen had borrowed. The older man's belongings, along with Rose's trunks of books and her few possessions, were loaded in the back. It was the same journey Owen had made dozens of times, but now it felt different. He was not alone anymore. He had a wife beside him and a father-in-law in the back, and he was taking them home. His home. Their home. Rose was quiet during the ride, and Owen worried she was having second thoughts. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I am wonderful," Rose said. "I am just taking it all in. Yesterday I was Rose Vernon, teacher. Today I am Rose Quincy, wife. It is a lot of change. Do you regret it?" "Not even for a second." They reached the ranch in the afternoon. Owen helped Robert down from the wagon and into the cabin, getting him settled in the chair by the fireplace. Then he turned to Rose. "Welcome home," he said. Rose looked around the cabin, taking in the simple furniture, the stone fireplace, the windows that let in the afternoon light. "It is perfect." Over the next few weeks, they settled into married life. Rose threw herself into making the cabin a home, adding touches that softened its rough edges. She set up a small corner as a study where she could prepare lessons, filling it with her beloved books. Robert slowly improved, able to help with small tasks and providing companionship. Owen worked on plans for the schoolhouse, measuring out a spot near the cabin where it would sit. He rode to neighboring ranches and farms, spreading the word that there would be a school starting in the spring. The response was overwhelming. Parents were eager for their children to have education without traveling all the way to Fort Smith. Winter settled in, cold and quiet. Owen and Rose spent long evenings by the fire, reading together, talking, learning all the small details of each other's lives that letters had not covered. They made love in the big bed Owen had built himself, learning each other's bodies with tenderness and passion. It was not always easy. There were hard days when the work was exhausting, when money was tight, when Robert's leg pained him and he grew irritable. But there were more good days than bad. Days when Rose would come out to the barn and watch Owen work with the horses, days when they would walk along the creek hand in hand, days when everything felt right. Spring came, and with it, new life. The ranch woke up from winter, grass greening and flowers blooming. Owen and several neighbors came together to build the schoolhouse, a sturdy structure with big windows and a wood stove. Rose furnished it with benches and a desk, a chalkboard she ordered from Fort Smith, maps and books. On a warm day in April, the school opened. 15 children showed up that first day, ranging from 5 to 13 years old. Rose stood at the front of her classroom and felt complete. She had her teaching and she had Owen. She had everything she wanted. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Rose had news. "I am with child," she said quietly. Owen looked at her stunned. "Are you sure?" "Yes. Doc Harrington confirmed it when I went into Fort Smith last week. The baby will come in late October or early November." Owen pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed. "A baby! We are going to have a baby. Are you happy? Happy does not begin to cover it. Owen kissed her, gentle and reverent. A child, our child. I am a little scared, Rose admitted. My mother died in childbirth once, a few years before she got sick. The baby died too. What if? Do not think like that, Owen said firmly. You are strong and healthy, and Doc Harrington is a good doctor. Nothing is going to happen to you or our baby. I will not let it. Over the summer, Rose continued teaching while her belly grew. The children were excited about the baby, and several of the farm wives showered her with advice and hand-me-down baby clothes. Sarah Mitchell knitted a beautiful blanket. Robert carved a cradle from oak, working on it slowly and carefully. As fall approached, Rose stopped teaching. She was too tired and uncomfortable to manage the classroom anymore. One of the older girls from a neighboring farm took over temporarily, under Rose's guidance. The baby came on a cold night in early November. Owen rode hard to Fort Smith to fetch Doc Harrington, his heart in his throat. The doctor came quickly, and Sarah Mitchell came too, having insisted she would be there to help. Owen was banished to the front room with Robert while Rose labored in the bedroom. Every cry from his wife tore at him. He paced, unable to sit still, praying harder than he ever had in his life. Finally, just before dawn, a baby's cry split the air. Owen froze, his heart pounding. Sarah appeared in the doorway, smiling. "You have a son," she said. "A big, healthy boy, and Rose is fine." Owen pushed past her into the bedroom. Rose was propped up on pillows, pale and exhausted but smiling. In her arms was a tiny bundle. Owen approached slowly, almost afraid. "Meet your son," Rose said softly. Owen looked down at the baby. He was red-faced and wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair. He was the most beautiful thing Owen had ever seen after his wife. "What should we name him?" Rose asked. They had discussed names but never decided. Now, looking at his son, Owen knew. "James, after my father, James Quincy," Rose said. "It is perfect." Owen sat on the edge of the bed and put his arm around his wife, looking down at their son. "I never knew I could feel this much. Love this much." "Neither did I," Rose said. "But here we are." "Here we are," Owen echoed. Life settled into a new rhythm with baby James. Rose returned to teaching part-time in the spring, bringing James with her to school. The children loved having a baby in the classroom and took turns helping care for him. Owen expanded the ranch, buying more land and increasing his herd. Robert became the doting grandfather, his injury now just a faint limp, spending hours with James. 2 years later, Rose gave birth to a daughter they named Anna. Then came another son, Thomas, 2 years after that. The cabin was expanded to accommodate the growing family, and life at the ranch was full and busy and happy. The school thrived too. What had started with 15 students grew to nearly 30 as more families moved into the area. Rose's reputation as an excellent teacher spread, and parents traveled from far away to enroll their children. On a summer evening when James was 6, Anna was 4, and Thomas was 2, Owen and Rose sat on the porch watching their children play in the yard. Robert was in his chair, whittling a toy for Thomas. "You ever think about that day?" Rose asked. "When I was broken down on the side of the trail?" "All the time," Owen said. "Best day of my life. Even better than our wedding. The wedding was the result of that day. You were the result of that day. All of this." Owen gestured at the ranch, the children, the life they had built. "I almost kept riding, you know. I saw that dust cloud and thought about the schedule, the delivery, all the plans I had. I almost chose the plans. But you did not." "No, because something told me those plans did not matter as much as finding out what that dust cloud meant. Some things matter more than my own plans." Rose leaned her head on his shoulder. "I am glad you felt that way. So am I. Every single day." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky orange and gold. James was teaching Anna how to skip stones in the water trough while Thomas toddled after them. Robert was humming an old tune as he carved. "I love you," Rose said. "I love you too. Always will." The sun set on the ranch, on the family, on a life built from a single act of kindness on a dusty trail years ago. Owen Quincy had left his herd to help a woman in need, choosing compassion over convenience. That choice had given him everything he had ever wanted and more than he had dared to dream. Sometimes the best things in life came from changing your plans. Sometimes love was waiting just around the next bend, disguised as trouble that needed fixing. Sometimes all it took was being willing to stop to help, to open your heart to possibilities you had not imagined. As the stars came out one by one, Owen pulled Rose closer and thought about the future. There would be more children, maybe. The school would keep growing. The ranch would expand. James would learn to ride, Anna would learn to read, Thomas would grow out of toddlerhood into boyhood. Robert would watch his grandchildren grow, secure and loved in his old age. Years would pass. The seasons would cycle. Life would bring its share of hardships and joys. But through it all, Owen and Rose would face it together, built on a foundation laid in 2 short days when a cowboy left his herd to help a woman in need. Some things matter more than your own plans. Love mattered more. Family mattered more. The connections you made and the lives you touched mattered more. Owen had learned that lesson on a hot afternoon outside Fort Smith, Arkansas, and he had never forgotten it. Now, sitting on his porch with his wife in his arms and his children playing in the yard, Owen knew he had made the right choice. He would make it again 1,000 times over. Because this life, this love, this family was worth everything. The stars shone bright over the ranch, and inside the house, lamps were lit against the growing darkness. It was time to bring the children in, to tuck them into bed with stories and kisses. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys. But tonight, everything was perfect. Owen stood and stretched, then helped Rose to her feet. Together they called to the children, who came running with shouts and laughter. Robert levered himself out of his chair, still spry despite his years. They went inside as a family, into the warm glow of home. The door closed behind them, shutting out the night. And in that little ranch house on the Arkansas plains, love reigned supreme, built on a foundation of sacrifice and choice and a cowboy who understood that some things mattered more than his own plans. The end of one day, and the promise of many more to come.